Over the past 5 years, our relationship with data has changed. We have shifted from the era of personalization, in which we put a lot of data into one location, mined it and modeled it to push things to people, to the era of participation, in which now we expect to collaborate and co-create with machines. We want to co-design with machines. We are no longer relying on blind algorithms to make decisions on our behalf. That is a fundamental shift from the era of search to the era of contextual awareness. Also, to make such systems great, we expect more transparency. We want to be able to audit these models to understand how they make decisions, why they make a particular decision. This is, of course, important to us as users. It's also important if you're providing services to a customer or to your research staff. You want to make sure that these models are auditable and transparent. We are also in a phase in which we are de-siloing a lot of these data stores. Many of you heard that we want to bring genetics data, biomarkers data, healthcare data, even transactional data and movement data together and make sense of them. Who said that we need to put all of that data into one location? That's a security problem. That's a privacy problem. It's a recipe for disaster when you co-locate. Remember the art of war. It's better to decentralize and orchestrate and ask questions from the data rather than just keep moving the data from one place to another. So as part of that, we have created a program called sAIpien with 5 key pillars at MIT Media Lab. Number 1, AI is no longer about just technology. It's not your CTO's problem. It's not the IT's problem only. It's everyone's problem. You need to treat it like an ecosystem in which different independent parts of an ecosystem figure out how to collaborate and coexist with each other. People ask me what I'm worried about and what I'm optimistic about. I am not that worried about the technology aspects of AI. I am extremely worried about the education and literacy around AI. We all complain that AI is prone to hallucination. Believe me, people hallucinate more about AI than AI about itself. So how do we empower people and educate people, not just in post-secondary institutions and in research facilities, but also our kids? Our K-12 students, our high school students, to use AI effectively, not as something that replaces, but something that empowers. The other thing that is very important is the understanding and the physics around data. AI without data is meaningless. If we don't know how to deal with this new physics, how to move the data, how to secure the data, how to tokenize the data, how to audit the data, no matter how amazing your AI strategy or algorithmics are, it will never scale. And the last thing that we are very passionate about are disciplines that usually were not taught or discussed as part of an AI curriculum, such as design. How do you design when these digital channels are dealing with uncertainty? Let alone if you're a regulated entity in healthcare, in finance. Is there a design paradigm for that? Can you just prescribe a user interface and do A/B testing and focus groups and now you have a beautiful app? The whole design paradigm is shifting. How do we educate researchers, people who are running experiments, designing experiments to design with uncertainty in mind? So what we have decided to do as part of the sAIpien program is to treat AI as a spectrum. 25 years ago, it was unfathomable to have high-definition video conferencing on a mobile phone and taking it for granted. We all take that for granted now. We all do 5G video calls, multi-point video conferencing, almost irrespective of where we are. Why? Because we invested in a communication spectrum that has security, bandwidth, frequency, regulation. We should think about AI like that. And as a result, in our program, we are introducing that spectrum. How do we build the next generation of human AI experiences? How do we abstract the complexity of data? You don't need to normalize and clean the data. You should have the ability to get signals from COBOL mainframes to new medical systems to data stores that are holding genomes. But if you can tokenize and orchestrate, you can do wonders with AI with much less computational cost. How do we form data alliances between universities, healthcare institutions, funding agencies, that they all control their data, but they join these alliances that they can pass intelligent signals together? Those are the infrastructure that our team at MIT is building. And of course, important things in AI, such as reason readiness. Reason readiness is a huge topic, as many of you know, but reason readiness on a data that we own, not a closed box Silicon Valley company providing us reason readiness without having the ability to control our identity and know-how. So the program that we have includes 6 key pillars. We love moonshot ideas. We are not interested just in the problem of today and tomorrow. We want to envision the future of industries in the next 5, 10, 15 years. How would the future hospital can look like? How can the future of publishing can look like, in which you no longer need to send a static manuscript? You can generate, you can interconnect the reviewer, the author, the publisher together. So our goal is to build fundamental technologies and give it to multiple sectors so they can take it and apply it to their respective sectors. We also build empowerment and readiness programs focused on education. So people come, learn the philosophy of AI, not necessarily just learning to code, and then use that philosophy to use AI as a decision supporter, not as a maker. So now what I want to talk about briefly is about one of our core research areas that we have published significantly around. It's getting a lot of attention. I'll show some examples to you, and then I will ask my esteemed friends to join us, and then we will participate in a conversation. We are interested in building human AI agents. How many of you used LLMs or ChatGPT or Gemini? Yes. This is how you use them over there. You have a black box of data and classifications. You usually hide it behind a conversational interface, and then you interact with it. But what if? That's good. You're not replacing that. But what if every single one of you can have a human AI agent that represents you, who you are, what belongs to you, and what knowledge you want to share? So instead of activate Gemini and ChatGPT, I want to activate a researcher that I may not have access to physically, but that researcher is sharing some of that know-how with me as an agent, and I can ask questions. Think about the decentralization of knowledge and how you can build a democratic collective intelligence. I'm going to share with you how we are working with doctors. I have my medical records. I want to activate a cardiologist, a dermatologist, and a nurse. Not them, but their representative agent, and ask them questions and let the agents collaborate. So our goal is the future of these human AI systems, not replacing people, but augmenting them. I'm so glad that we are at Science House because we can talk about the science of things, we can talk about the scientific impact, but not also stop there. Demonstrate how this is going to move across the spectrum and change things for the better. How many of you heard about agentic AI? Agentic AI is nothing new. Agentic AI was introduced in 1994. It's the ecosystem around that technology that changed, so now we are really seeing its value. But the problem with agentic AI is that it's not scalable based on the current software engineering paradigms that is being designed. That's why a lot of the workflows and use cases that you see are very linear. Oh, let me show you how I can use your bank account to book an airfare for you. Great. But what if you have millions of people and millions of systems and millions of agents? I guarantee you every single software architecture paradigms that we have now will come into a halt because they cannot scale for so many different reasons. So my team and I at the Media Lab are working on the next generation of software architectures, which are AI graphs that can reason, and they are very computationally effective, and we call them Chronicles. AI Chronicles, essentially these human AI agents. Agents that can learn from you from the ontological mapping of human behavior. We published recently a paper at the Nature Behavior Journal, which is about that. Let's understand people first. Let's understand human dynamics first, and then applying it to these systems. So without boring you, we have built these multimodal ontological systems that can look at photos, text, medical records, music. You can plug them in. We don't want to build all of that ourselves. There are so many great startups that I met during the WEF and during Davos that they are doing some very special things. Let them focus on those niche areas, bring those modes into this ecosystem. And as you learn from those nodes, you continue to update the chronicle. I can have a chronicle. Robert can have a chronicle. They are not necessarily holding data. They are causal graphs that understand the relationship between things. And there are techniques that you can use to charge them with data, use the data, and remove the data from the graph. For those of you in Europe, that's fully aligned with GDPR. I hope that we can also do that in North America. We have used over the past 6 years building these ontological mapping of human behavior from the very base level to very upper level ontologies, which are very sector specific. Scientific discovery, finance, industry, manufacturing. So I have a team that are very expert in these niche areas that they use base ontological mapping and they build their specific ontologies on top of that. And without, there are lots of papers that you can read, but I want to share some examples with you, so make it a little bit more practical, and then we will participate in a conversation. Let's talk about AI and work. This video here is the video of our startup office. The video on the right is the digital twin of that office, which we have used techniques like Gaussian splatting to map the digital twin of that building within less than 2 hours using a basic iPhone. We then have gone and used all the data sets that are available to this company, from payroll systems, project management systems, Jira tickets that is measuring the efficiency of development, and we built chronicles not just for the individual, but for the behavior of the collective organization to represent the behavior. And then one of our students, who used to be the VFX director of Harry Potter, decided to build a lens for the digital twin. So now you can wear the lens of the CEO, which is a chronicle, walk the digital twin of the office, and see the office dynamics through the lens of the CEO. What is important to him? What are the priorities? But these graphs are fully privacy preserved because depending who's prompting them, the abstraction and the granularity of information will be different. So an intern versus someone in the executive committee may receive very different data. I can then wear the lens of an ESG specialist and see how we are doing in terms of our carbon footprint. How many of you have been to MIT Media Lab? We would love to have you there. Just reach out. If you come to the Media Lab, now we have the digital twin of the office. Also think about frontiers and what you can do with scientific discovery. I'm reading a paper, but I'm reading a paper as someone who is interested in climate. I'm reading a paper, but I'm interested to look at it through the lens of manufacturing. Can I wear that lens to filter? So when you come to the Media Lab, you can pick your favorite group. But then you can say, I want to look at this research or manuscript through the lens of a professor who has an interest in this area. And then we will filter that for you. Sorry, I dropped my microphone. Hopefully you can hear me. So these are all, we created a tiny model, not a large language model, that represents the collective research base of the lab with all our stakeholders. So now you can walk in the lab and develop perspectives. That's why we call it perspective-aware AI. I have a dear colleague who is well known in the world for genetic engineering. Unfortunately, that's not my background. I wish I knew more. But what if we want to collaborate? I can use my research chronicle, his research chronicle, combine them together, and then I will get a base reference for a priori science or research that we want to work on. It's not complete. It's a decision support allowing us to get to that synergistic human-to-human communications faster. So two research-based, decentralized, coming together, and a new research will be proposed. We have demonstrated our work against all the available literature, and in terms of understanding humans, we have outperformed some of the best models that are being developed by some of the big people. Those models are very good with object detection. Oh, there is a coffee on the table and there are two people talking and all that. But can you actually say, I don't know if these two people can work well together. They may not like each other. Or some of the work that we have done with US agencies is basically saying, well, if you put two ultra high performers in a team, they actually may not work. So the combination of skill sets are things that we think this is important. I want to be cautious of time, but let me show you a few more things. About a year ago, you may know her, Emily Chang is a well-known tech reporter for Bloomberg, reached out to me. My supervisor was Jeff Hinton's student, so Jeff Hinton, myself, and Emily worked together to demonstrate if these chronicles can recreate human agency. So I'm going to play a video for you. It's a documentary you can watch. It's called Post-Human. It's publicly available. But I'm going to play a short excerpt from that, and I'm going to show you how we built that to show you the sign. So let's just watch this video. Hopefully the sound will work.
Realistically, give us a form of immortality.
Chatbots can be immortal, but immortality is not for people. People are analog systems. Nobody can replicate you without precisely replicating all your hardware, which is impossible.
So, for example, I lost my father at a young age. If I could speak to some digital version of him that felt like him, I think I'd love to do that.
In order to do that, you need to train up a chatbot on lots of data from your father, and I'm not sure how good it would be.
A group of computer scientists is doing just that.
So you can watch this, so it shows you how we build it. But we actually used Emily as an example, and we start to use our chronicle builders. We used, of course, there's a lot of public knowledge out there. She has interviewed all the Fortune 50 CEOs. We used that data to build a graph, the base graph. We used her interviews with Natalie Portman, Sheryl Sandberg, her book. These are different modes of data. We didn't care about the format of the data, cleansing of the data. Our technique, which is called structured learning, understood the semantics of which data should go closer to what other data types within that graph. And then we formed these chronicles, we structured that, and then we created a chatbot. The chatbot was great, you can talk to her, but then we got an idea. And I want to tell you why I'm sharing this example. We thought, what if we can actually create her photorealistic avatar that we can actually talk to her? That was not our expertise. So we reached out to folks in LA. These are the people behind the Avatar movie. And I said, what if we collaborate? You guys have the best facial mapping segmentation model, and we have the best behavioral model. Let's partner. The reason I say that is that don't think you have to build all of these AI capabilities yourself. That's the powerful thing about AI. Go very niche, use your expertise, build that model, and then find someone who can complement you. This is how great startups and researchers can now come together. So let me show you what we built. We built a dashboard that instead of activating Gemini or Cloud or ChatGPT, you can activate the chronicle of your person, if they have given you access, of course. You activate the chronicle. These are all watermarked, so if I use a fake chronicle, this software that we created will block you to use that. And then what we also did was that we created something called the audit dashboard. So as you talk, we have gut feelings, right? So if I come to you and say, can you give me $1,000? Use that. Because we have that sixth sense. I'm not comfortable about what I'm feeling. But what if we bring that to AI? What if we say, talk to the avatar, talk to the agent, but let me give you a confidence level. You make the decision. I am sharing you in a real time, looking at a bunch of signals to see what you think. So let me show you what we did. So we choose the chronicle. We parse the graph. We check the audit, and then you talk.
AI appears almost magical in the workplace, enhancing productivity and streamlining tasks, but it brings significant concerns. The training data driving these systems can be biased, racist, sexist, and incorrect, which may perpetuate.
So let me move on because I want to be cautious of time. We are also now working on passive calm. I like this term. How many of you heard the term HCI, human-computer interaction? It's in a very well-known sub-literature of computer science, our relationship with the machine. The model I like to talk about is HCI2, humane, calm, and intelligent interfaces. I just want to watch these agents talk, but I want to learn from their conversation. So now we have models that you can activate a bunch of people, propose a topic, and observe them talking. 2 researchers, 2 scientists with different opinions, but as a PhD student, I want to just prompt them and let them talk, and I learn. We are now using it in robotics. We are now putting Chronicles into robots. These are my daughters. This was my COVID project, that instead of setting up the robot with configurations and settings, I put a Chronicle that includes my value system, and they learn from my daughter's interaction. So over time, humanoid robots, electronics can also understand us better rather than we just go to settings and change things. We have done it in finance. Our team is really disliking these mobile banking apps, so they are working with embodied AI to incorporate biometrics and AI in physical objects, but essentially you get what you're getting from your predictive banking apps using AR lenses and augmented reality. And this is the last thing I want to talk about, AI and health. The reason I show you these sectors and what I really love to do this at the Science House is let's build core science that is different. Give it to people. Let them to unleash their creativity in health, in manufacturing, in mobility, right? That's where we see an ecosystem emerging. So about 4 months ago, at an MIT conference, I met a very well-known orthopedic surgeon from California who is well-known, and he has about 35 years of electronic medical records worth of data. His name is Dr. Michael Karsh. He wanted to be here with me, but unfortunately he could not travel. And then we started to share this idea that what if I can recreate you so your patients, while they are waiting to see you, the real you, they can also talk to you and share their ideas and ask questions. But because of FDA and regulations, we had to make sure that we had guardrails around this agent. The agent could not diagnose. The agent could not prescribe. And the other thing that I really loved about this was we worked with a group in Washington, D.C. that is expert in bedside manners. The anxiety of the patient versus the busyness of the doctor. And we tuned our models based on those models. So now I'm going to share with you a glimpse of what we are doing with Michael Karsh. So,
hi there. I'm the AI version of Dr. Michael Karch, who's an orthopedic surgeon. Just to be clear, I'm not actually Dr. Karch. My name is Dr. Michael.
So you can just talk to your doctor, your family doctor, your preferred physician, and consult, but you're not on WebMD or going on an LLM. They know you, they know their EMR, and they can also interface with LLMs. The reason I shared that for those of you that were in the audience, sorry, I'll just pause this. The reason this was important is that this doctor only has 15 minutes to see a patient. 5 minutes listen, 5 minutes diagnose, 5 minutes put things back in an EMR. And it takes about 6 weeks for a patient to do the first encounter and then meet the doctor after objective analysis to do a diagnosis. With this, we are now measuring that we can reduce that to about 3 weeks, which is a huge efficiency gain for the doctor. The other thing that I liked was that we wanted to democratize this knowledge base. What if there is a patient somewhere in Europe, say in France, who wants to talk to Michael Karsh? Michael Karsh does not speak French. The patient prefers to speak in their preferred language. So we use this very basic transfer learning to use that know-how, but do this in French.
Je m'appelle Dr. Michael Karsh. Je suis chirurgien orthopédique à
Oh, I'm sorry.
orthopédique de Mammoth, à Mammoth Lakes, en Californie. Aujourd'hui, vous parlez avec mon clone IA au sujet de certains problèmes que vous avez rencontrés récemment. D'après ce que vous décrivez, il s'agit probablement...
Okay, now,
There,
I don't want to bore you. We are now building digital twins of people so you can actually use your blood work and genome data and biomarkers and apply different nutritional metrics to figure out what symptomatic things you may get on your face. We have a technique that we published called ID-RAG that you can use your, of course, youth and young version, but see the impact of that diet as you get older and how it may look like. These are early days. Many of them may not go anywhere. But we are feeling that if the person is in control, that they can apply, because you can't do, not everyone can do this with a caregiver. They're like, come on, I gotta go to the next patient. But what if you have a concierge with you that learns from you and helps you, and it's not you as a segment in a database that, oh, this is a male in this age group, in this geography, therefore push things. It's me. We are all different. What if that chronicle allows us to personalize that? We did something with Deepak Chopra. We created a version of a mom with her daughters. The mom brought the daughters to talk to the avatar of the mom, and you know what? The daughters hated it. And that was a big turning point in our research because we shifted from replicating people to a model in which we decided to build these systems as passive storytellers. And that's a research project that I have with York University in Canada. And I met the former head of the palliative care at Mount Sinai Hospital. And we started, he has a book, Stephen Jenkinson, in terms of all the things he learned and saw. So I'm like, yes, we can always build models from medical records, but what if we bring different things, people's psychologies, people's emotions, people's culture, right? And combine that together to make these systems more empathic. The last thing, we are also building systems. If you're interested, reach out. We really like to work with companies who want to transform. So we are building scores and metrics so you can measure the readiness score of your organization. And with that, you use these techniques that we developed to figure out how you want to move forward to make AI better. We work with research institutions, we work with R&D organizations, banks. So I wrap up before the panel with 4 things that I always say. Look at AI as an ecology. Figure out what components in that ecology you need rather than technology. Build AI for everyone. Not everyone should be a computer scientist. You can teach and use AI from top down and use it, but make sure that there can be so many stakeholders for making AI better. In this new economy, data is the new asset class, trust is the currency, and AI is the economy. And if you figure that triangle well, you can do wonders. Make sure you augment people. There are definitely in military and other areas, there are decision-making systems and autonomous systems. But for a lot of the things that we talk about, it's about augmentation of human and rather than replacing it. Make sure you have transparency, and also make sure we have to understand each other first before we can incorporate that to AI.
The only real way that we could, do research was or to work on this area was to publish papers, right? And to say this is possible, right? We can essentially practice law in a completely different way that is quantitative, and lawyers didn't really want to hear about it. And then ChatGPT came out, and they realized it was kind of undeniable that there's like this moment, and we began a race for second place. No lawyer wanted to be first, right? But they didn't want to be third either. And so they bought these tools and they tried to kind of integrate these tools and get people to be more efficient. And I think we are in a third kind of wave of this, and like 3 waves in the span of 1 PhD, which is exciting, where people have realized, hey, we can actually differentiate ourselves with AI. We can build technologies that supercharge what already makes us really unique. But this is a completely different way of innovating, right? This is not waiting for somebody else to innovate and build a product that you buy. It is actually looking at what you're doing internally and building something yourself. And this requires different incentive structures, different modalities of innovation, all this kind of stuff. But what is so exciting to me, and we were just saying this earlier, like if lawyers can do it, just about anyone can do it. Like you can build these technologies now, and I mean you've shown some of the really cool things and these futuristic things. You can build things that supercharge not, that don't replace like the lowest FTEs and try to cut costs, but that actually supercharge what makes your business, your organization, you as a person, most differentiated, most special. And I think this is very special about the technology we have now, right? Not as a flattening of people and organizations and cultures, but actually as an augmenter of those differences. Yeah.
Thanks, Robert.
Yeah, thank you.
Amir?
Hussein, I was 13 years old when somebody gave me a copy of Being Digital by Nicholas Negroponte. And the vision and the picture of the future that Professor Negroponte painted in that book really inspired me, and I was immersed in literature of that variety. Buckminster Fuller, another American great, suggested many, many years ago that with technology we've already reached a point where, were it not for unfair allocation of the winnings of technology, we could really take good care of the people here on Earth. Then, of course, I got into the profession of technology. I'm a computer scientist by background. I did companies, I did well. But now as I look back, I find that technology, particularly the path that it's going on now, and perhaps even accelerated by AI, has a tremendous gravity. It's a gravity which attracts capital. It's a gravity which attracts and decimates competition. And it's something that by design is ruining the potential for ordinary people to benefit from technology in the way that we would have hoped in the years that we read Being Digital, or perhaps in the more optimistic science fiction literature of years gone by. My mission in life now is what I call technologies of freedom. When I met you and when I saw the work that you were doing, which I was not terribly familiar with before we got to speaking, it really brought together this idea that many of us are out there wanting to do the same thing. We're calling it by different names. But the important thing is, number one, the realization that artificial intelligence can empower us individually. It is no longer the case that we have to put everything into the big cloud companies and that we have to have our data and our futures owned and ruled by them. And at the same time, there might be a really compelling architecture, almost a digital society of agents, of avatars, of multiple personalities, all stemming from an individual that go and do these things. And just in the end, as I wrap this up, I recently wrote a book called The Cybernetic Society. And the idea behind the Cybernetic Society, again, going back to Norbert Wiener, is this notion that we and machines are not two things anymore. If you want to model what happens in the world where human decision-making, amplified mechanically and even cognitively by machines, is indistinguishable, then the model must be extended beyond the human. It is the cybernetic model. And by the way, that's not just about us, that's about our societies. So I speak to the Saudis, for example, about whatever they're doing with NEOM, however big it becomes, whether it's a fraction or it's the full vision. But that is an open green field in which to think about how cities speak to us, how transport speaks to us, how machines and us act together. So I think this meeting that we've had, tremendously fortuitous, and I think that this is perhaps one of the most practically important topics that we in the field of AI could pursue. And I'll shut up now because I could go on about this for a long time, but I feel as if I've met a kindred spirit.
Oh. Really appreciate it, both of you. So let's make it a bit more conversational now. So the thesis that I think all three of us shared, which you hear it all from everywhere. The literature is pretty finite when people talk about AI. I'm sure you heard about explainable AI and human-centered and all that, but let's really dig deep and see what they actually mean. I think one of the theses that at least the group that Robert and I work together at Media Lab has always been focused on human centricity and human dynamics and understanding humans before you can apply those models into systems. Question I have in that regard for that framework for Robert is, I was really impressed, but at the same time a little bit worried about the future, because he could show an incremental knowledge base like law. That if you have access to that data over a period of time series, and if you understand the cases that a particular judge has gone through, with a very high degree of probability, you can predict the outcome of a case. Even if there are some technical or regulatory challenges now, we can agree that very soon we will have such systems. Tell us a little bit about that, and if technology is bringing such capabilities, then what's the role of a law firm or a lawyer? Or is it bringing efficiency into the judicial system? Is it creating a lot of biases?
Yeah, so we're in Science House, so we get to be a little academic, right?
Yes,
so
exactly, yeah.
if I think of like the perfect world, utopia, heaven, whatever, and I think about what exists in that and what doesn't, I don't really think about contract negotiations, going to court, meeting with lawyers as a part of my kind of paradise. And I think the reason for that is that lawyers and law and the legal system are kind of this almost necessary evil that arise out of the fact that humans are not always playing nice with each other, and we need to have a mechanism by which to hold each other accountable, resolve disputes. A very similar argument, by the way, can be made for doctors, right?
Yeah.
In paradise, I don't need to see...
Incremental knowledge base.
Yeah, and paradise, I don't really need to go see my PCP because I don't get sick, right?
Yeah.
And so in a world in which there are no doctors, hopefully that's a world in which we don't get sick, so we don't need to go see the doctor. And so in a way, you could say, look, like our mission should be to just get rid of lawyers, right? Because if we can fully automate this, like you can have a dispute and an AI tells you the optimal outcome, then that's much more efficient, it's much cleaner. But like reality is not that simple. We don't live in this kind of utopia. And so I think, why do people go to lawyers? There are a couple reasons. Like one is because you want to go to a third party that can guide you through something that is genuinely hard, right? Like most people and even most organizations, when they go to a lawyer, it is an unusual time in their lives, and having a trusted advisor is hugely helpful. I don't think that's something easy to automate, right? And so even if that lawyer has access to a tool that can tell the client exactly with what probability they're going to succeed at every step of their case, things we're building, we'll still need that trusted advisor. And there are a couple other roles that lawyers play that I think are just like intrinsically human and intrinsically something that we not only can't automate, but probably shouldn't automate. And same, I think, similar arguments can be made for doctors, right? So yeah, I think it's too simplistic to just say like, oh, well, we'll automate this wholesale. But what is key to me, and I said it a moment ago, is to really think about like the value add, right? The most important, richest part of a profession, and thinking about how we can augment that piece with technology.
That's great. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, a question for you. You meet a lot of entrepreneurs. You have built and continue to build amazing ventures and startups. And in addition to the mindset, these are great people with ambitions and visions coming together. They complement each other and they build things. I know it's a bit of a cliche question, but do you foresee that a startup can be built as a collaboration between one individual and many, many agents that are bringing that expertise? Essentially, an enterprise of one and thousands of agents.
We speak, we have a Monday kind of IC meeting at the fund, and we often talk about when we're going to get a single entrepreneur that comes with a system that's basically run with AI that we believe can drive $1 billion valuation. Many of our companies are small companies in human terms, but the work that they're outputting is absolutely tremendous. When I started my last big AI company back in 2010, 13. I ran it for 10 years as CEO before I replaced myself, and that company at peak was about 500 plus people. If I were to do something like that again, it would probably be 30 people. And I would think that the natural friction that is reduced when you have a smaller number of people, perhaps those 30 people would be far more effective. So I think this is an entirely new way of doing business. My wife Zaib and I, her background is finance. She runs our family office. One of the things that she's doing, and forgive me, I might divulge some of your secrets here, but she's working with a very small team on a systematic hedge fund. Now, I've worked with systematic hedge funds in many years past, and you need big teams. You need a lot of mathematicians. You need a lot of quants. You need risk. You need execution. You need a lot of stuff to get that infrastructure going. And she's been doing quite okay with a very small team. So I think you'll find that there's a gap here where people that really are A, willing to take a risk, and B, understand the technology enough to sort of take the right kinds of risks, will be able to do amazing things. Eventually, the world will catch up, but by then, perhaps there'll be another architectural, evolution, a branch that perhaps some of the early adopters would be able to. And embodiment is something that excites us tremendously. We're building robots. I can't wait to do what you've done with the small, SoftBank robots. I can't wait to do that with our manufacturing robot. So it's all coming, and I want it to happen in 12 months, which is just my sort of my nature. I'm always in a hurry, but I think these things are just around the corner.
Yeah, thank you. We are almost time. I wish we could have more time, but we are at Science House, and when Frederick and George reached out, I'm like, yes, we need to disseminate science. We need to highlight the role of science, not as a silo, not as just number of academics who want to publish high-impact journals and conferences, by the way, considered frontiers. We need to see it as an enabler for all the other things that you're seeing across the prominent. So maybe I wrap with this question. I served on the board of a scientific publishing company for about 10 years, always supported peer reviews. How would that industry change? I mean, you and I published a lot. Could agents help all of us? I mean, I may not want to read a 20-page paper. I may just want to activate a knowledge base, ask questions, and then develop my knowledge base. Let's talk about scientific discovery a little bit, and then if we have time, we will open it up for questions. But before that, I just want to thank Science House and Frederick, George, for putting this together, because we need more of this, more science and the impact of science in everything else that you're seeing across prominence. So we'll start with you and talk about that paper thing that you talked about, the sudden...
the Sleeping Beauties, yeah. Okay, so I've been an interdisciplinary scholar and without a disciplinary home. And that's rare and discouraged, right? If you have someone who's doing a PhD and they ask for advice, everyone will say, you need to be a statistician who's interested in something else, or a bioinformaticist who also has an ethics interest. Do not be someone who doesn't fall within a home. And I think what's unique about the Media Lab, it is a home for the homeless in academia. There's an expression we used to say, if you could be doing your research somewhere else, you don't belong here. But the problem is that we have created really bad incentives for academics who are in between these disciplines. And I think that with technology accelerating so quickly, by the time we've defined the discipline, it's been 10 years.
Yeah.
And you have all these people who fell through the cracks. And I can tell you, as someone who's been in academia, who wanted to be an academic for a long time, and then started a company, honestly, begrudgingly, because I was I want to do this research, and academia is not really rewarding it. And there was this pressure, make the publication more fit this and that. It was like a breath of fresh air. to leave academia and to have sudden like intellectual freedom. Everybody told me like you will leave academia and know like the man will force you to like follow these capitalistic incentives. It hasn't been like that. And so I think, and we're seeing this much more broadly, like, is AI research being done by the AI labs?
Yeah.
And if so, like those labs are not at MIT, Stanford, and Harvard, or ETH Zurich and EPFL and Sorbonne, they're at Anthropic.
Yeah.
And so I think that academia should feel the push, and journals should feel the push as well. The Sleeping Beauties paper, I would say, just Google it. This is an interesting paper we worked on, but the TLDR is that we looked at different knowledge systems, science, law, patents. Turns out they are all surprisingly similar. The ways that humans search for knowledge doesn't seem to be affected by kind of intrinsic procedures, incentives, all this stuff, and is really driven by communities and collectives. My advisor calls it the infinite paper. It took us a long, long time, and it's still not quite published, but I think we have a very nice venue for it. Stay tuned. Anyway, I'll leave it there.
We're almost done, but Amir, final comments, and maybe you can wrap it up for us.
Well, I think, again, we've touched on AI and science. We've touched on models that can empower people and can augment their bandwidth. And we've talked about using many of these to create communities. Let me share a dream in which many of these models, many of these agents, imbued with interest in science, are out there solving the ultimate problem. Because once we have all this AI, what is our purpose? Yeah. What I've been writing about and thinking about immensely is that the landscape of ideas is infinite. No matter how fast AI goes, no matter how fast machines go, no speed poses any challenge to infinity. So perhaps the goal for us now in our evolving state, in our post-AI cybernetic state, is that the value we deliver is the uncovering of these secret ideas, the uncovering of the secret knowledge. And if we were able to look at this rationally and say that we can provide for ourselves, 2% of us are feeding the world, 1% of us can produce all of the mechanized goods that the world needs. Why must we create war and destruction, fighting over things that everyone can have? Let us use this technology to go uncover the unknown and create a system in society that rewards each other for being those pioneers, being those discoverers, augmented by technology, being those cybernauts in the future ideascape.
That's amazing. Thank you. I couldn't have asked for a better wrap-up.